I love this question because I heard a long time ago, and it was between business school and now, but I don't know exactly where. New level, new devil. And to me, this will be recurring. This is not something that you will go through one time as a business owner or even as a high level executive, whatever that looks like for you. And you will reach the point where you figure out this emotional block or something that's in the way, a trauma that's causing problems when you make certain decisions, and you'll go, thank goodness, my hands are clean now. I feel good. Okay, from now on, it's going to be sky's the limit. That's not true. You're going to do this multiple times.
Are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.
And welcome back to STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast. I got another great guest, Angela Cartledge. We're going to have a really interesting discussion today. And I'm excited about it because I've never really had a guest like this to talk about this and how we apply it to this situation. Am I being vague enough, Angela? Is that
you're leading them along? I like
that's
it.
Right,
I
that's
like
right.
it. It's
so
definitely.
As we always do, I'm going to have Angela introduce herself, kind of give us a little backstory, bring us up to speed, and we'll get into our conversation, which I assure you you're going to be interested in and love. So, Angela, take it away.
Hi, and thank you for having me. I am Angela Dunn Cartledge. I am the creator of the Been There, Done That podcast. And my goal is to break the stigma around grief and trauma and how we make our decisions when we have those things in the way. I have an extensive financial background and just found that even in business, we make decisions that are emotionally blocked. And one of those things that blocks those decisions is through grief. So that's going to be the topic today, and hopefully it'll help a lot of people.
Awesome. Yeah, it is going to be exciting because I think in the area of grief, I know a lot of people don't think about it. I've been exposed to it lately. We do a thing called Grief Share at our church and stuff. It's very interesting. In grief, you learn. Some people put it on like this major, huge thing that maybe happened or a loss or something like that. But it really, as we're going to talk about, I think is you start to break it down to even smaller things. But what we're really going to focus on today is the effect on performance. You know, you're in a business, you run a business, you're a leader, and trauma and grief, they kind of go together, or they can, right? So what I've learned and what you're going to share with us, and you can always correct me when I'm wrong because I'll probably be wrong more than once. Okay. But we hold on to stuff. Grief can last for decades, right? This could have been something we've been grieving since we were 10 and now we're 36 or something. And we've got these issues. So we're going to talk a little, we're going to define it a little bit, right? And then we're going to get into really the performance aspect, like between what we do in our business, how it affects us in our families, and things like that, because mindset, a lot of people talk about mindset, but I don't know if anyone's really brought this aspect, use grief as a mindset, issue, because I believe it is. Obviously, it's an emotional issue, but the mindset to be able to perform every day, again, with your family and your business is another thing. So with that being said, Angela, let's start with the definition. I know it might be really broad, but if you can kind of get us dialed in to what we're really, discussing as far as grief goes.
I love it. My definition of grief is anything that shifts your perception of the world around you. So whether that be a loss of a person, the loss of a beloved pet, a loss of security or safety, a loss of a relationship, a loss of a career path, a loss of an expectation, any of those things can be perceived within our bodies and within our thought processes as being grief. And while most people give themselves carte blanche to feel sad when they lose a person or a pet, they don't give themselves a lot of space around what to do when they're grieving something else, a career path, as we were talking about early on in this discussion, that we can have an expectation or an understanding when we graduate from college, as an example, of what this is going to look like. We have a degree in so-and-so, and that degree means we have jobs that look like this. And I will tell you, just from my experience, and what I'll call wisdom, it's only wisdom because I like to think of it that way, that I have a business degree, but my business degree was obtained in 1997. There is nothing about what I learned then that is true now about business. So it morphs, it evolves, it goes in different directions. And if we had an expectation at the beginning of where that was going to end up, and it didn't go that way, now we have grief around it. Now we have an emotion that is in the way, or that looks like something like fear or protection to keep us from being hurt by whatever it is that is happening around us. And instead, we're stopping ourselves from acting. We're continuing the process of being still or being stuck and not being able to move forward.
I want to ask you a question. Is regret part of grief? Can that be tied into it?
I totally see that as being part of it. That is a really powerful question, because ultimately, if the reason that you aren't in the place that you think you should have been by this point, all of us at younger ages said, when I'm 40, I'm going to have $2 million in the bank. I'm going to have, we had all these criteria because we were young and we had tons of hope and not a lot of life experience. But if the decision that was made was yours, that to me is regret. Grief tends to be something that happens to you. Regret is something that you live when you did it. So I absolutely see them as being the flip sides of the same coin, because it just depends on who made the decision, who acted, or what your perception is of that action, who's responsible as to whether you feel grief or regret. And I think regret is a much, much under spoken about emotion. We just don't talk about regret. We even speak about it and say, no regrets. That's my mantra, no regrets. But that doesn't translate really into real life and in how we actually perform and work and do the things that we do in our lives.
That's interesting. So would there be I'm going to make an assumption there's a different approach to overcoming grief and overcoming a regret. So, and I don't want to just stay on the regret grief thing, but I'm just saying, I think there's what you're saying. If one's a personal responsibility, another one is it's an outside force, right? That can be in control over, right? You don't have control over death or a loss or something like that.
I love that you've brought this up, because I really feel like it's about our perception of what has happened to us. So we may be blaming another entity. We could call it the God of our choosing. We could call it the universe. We could call it luck or blessing or whatever those things are. And we could blame it on something else. Well, it just didn't work out the way I thought it was going to because of blank. But then we can also over blame ourselves for things that we really aren't that responsible for. So I think it's important to understand a healthy perspective around what it is that is keeping you stuck. A lot of people will say, I can't leave this job, or I can't be my own boss because I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, or I don't have the business acumen that somebody else might have. But that's, again, I'm using that as an example to just illustrate what we can do when we push the responsibility out into the world. It's not my fault that I failed in this business. It was the fact that we were already in a pandemic, or we were in a financial downturn. It just didn't work out that way. When in reality, it's that plus about 12 other factors that have really played into what happened. And I'm not saying that we need to blame ourselves. I'm actually saying the opposite. There's a healthy balance between the two things where we can say, this just didn't work out, but I learned so much, and I can take that with me to the next endeavor, whether that be a career path or an entrepreneurial situation. So I feel that we have to balance it. And that's why I love the question, because to me, regret being more personal responsibility and grief being more of an external force, as you said, we can put those two things together and minimize those two emotions by balancing the equation.
Yeah, that's great. I say that often about 08, 09, big financial collapse. My business gets taken out, lose my home and all that stuff. But then I tell everyone, except it wasn't the economy. It was all the things I didn't do in my business that could have weathered that storm, that I was just too happy making money and being out front, and I ignored. And then the reckoning time came, so I take full responsibility, and I get it, but I could easily just blame it on that. Oh, it's the economy like everybody else, right?
As we can with everything else. My relationship failed because my husband cheated. Financially, I didn't make the right, I didn't reach the pinnacle that I wanted to reach because of this or that or the other thing. You don't have to have it be all or nothing. It can be a balance. And to your earlier point about grief taking a long time to get past, if we sit in it, if we give ourselves a chance to actually feel those emotions and be honest with what is happening, we're going to feel a lot less than we think we will. We think we can't handle it. We think we're not able to process through some of those things, but we can do more than we think. So we're stronger than we give ourselves credit for, or we're constantly blaming everybody else. There has to be a balance.
Yeah, I think from an entrepreneurial viewpoint, one of the number one traits of entrepreneurs is self-awareness. They had big studies, and they found that really self-awareness is one of the key traits to being an entrepreneur, right? So I think that falls in line with this. Again, like you just said, you have to sit in it. Okay, you really have to look at this stuff. And if don't have this introspection, if you will, and analyze it, because sometimes I never thought about grief, like ever. Like it has no control on me. It has no bearing on me. Yeah, I lost some people, and I don't like death, for one thing. Like, who does? I know what you're thinking. But I'm really not, I don't like it. I don't like to go to funerals. I don't like to do stuff. I don't like people dying. Okay. And especially people I know. Right. So it's a hard thing. But I never gave it thought. I'm like, well, I'll just stay away from it, kind of avoid it and stuff. So I think from that standpoint, again, in entrepreneurs, as we move forward and we're building things and we're making things happen and we're leading people and all this kind of stuff, I don't know. And I'm not speaking for everybody, but I am making this kind of a general term. I don't know if the majority, and this could be the majority of all people, for all I know, is they don't go to grief as a debilitation, right? It's not debilitating. It's there and it's just part of life and all this stuff. But let's talk about the actual effects of grief on somebody. Like, how does it manifest? What happens in that area?
For me, what I have learned through my experience, but also through my own journey, is that we primarily experience what I would call micro traumas. And I'm sure that other people use that term as well. We experience small losses. And that, I believe, is why we don't give those losses more credit, because we don't even give ourselves credit for small victories. We focus on the big neon sign, the big thing that happens, the one video that goes viral, the book that instantly goes to the top of the bestseller list, the biggest client that we won. We instantly go to those things. But to know that there are several 100,000 small steps that it took to get to that big client, that book deal, that whatever, I'm using very vague examples, but any of those things that you would experience, especially in an entrepreneurship situation, that you don't take the time to sit and actually process those things. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it. I'm saying, take time and have a journal, or on your to-do list every day, jot down the 3 best things that happened the day before. Or if you happen to do your to-do list the night before, like I do, jot it down then. The 3 best things that happened today. And they don't have to be big. They can be, I made all of the things happen on my to-do list that I wanted to make happen. And there were 5 or 3. It doesn't matter. So to me, I feel that we don't give grief credit from that perspective. But we also don't give grief credit because we're taught not to. Early on in our lives, we're taught to not cry, to not spend a lot of time thinking about sad things. It'll be okay. You'll get over it. My favorite that I still say, and my kids laugh at me when I say this, is rub some dirt on it. You'll be okay. But all that does is minimize the feeling, which I understand that when we're, especially in business, emotion is a very hard thing to regulate. It's a hard thing to put your finger on. It's not tangible. So it's a hard thing to really mitigate when you're working, and especially in an entrepreneurship situation. So I want to say that we need to actually just acknowledge, back to your self-awareness point, that is, to me, the key to that question. What happens? It's always happening. You're always having a bad day, or a deal that didn't go through, or you slept through your alarm and woke up late. Whatever those micro traumas are that get kind of stuck in your craw and cause you to think differently about the way the day is going, or cause you to make different decisions, those are the things that need to be identified. Those are the things that need to be paid attention to. And then the second step, I would say, would be, first you identify. Secondly, you need to be aware. Again, to your self-awareness point, you have to pay attention to those moments and watch them happen, because you're making decisions whether you know it or not based on those emotions. So something happens, you spill your coffee, and it goes all over the presentation that you're about to give. And now I got to print more, or I gotta have notes so that I can speak to it from my PowerPoint presentation online, whatever that is. Something in there is getting stuck. Something is bothering you about the fact that happened. Now you're going to think differently about the presentation because you spilled your coffee. It's an omen. It's not going to go well. This is a sign. Or somehow you can finagle that. But and you can also do that the other way, where you say, this isn't going to get me down. I've got this. Everything's going to be great. but it's the trigger, whether that be positive or negative, and we can over positive things as well. That trigger is where you have to focus. That's the thing you have to pay attention to. You don't realize what you're saying to yourself until you sit with it. And that is the hardest thing to do, because we don't want to experience uncomfortable thoughts or feelings. We don't want to be uncomfortable ever. So we breeze through it. The small stuff can just wash down the river, but it eventually will get to a part in the river where it won't flow anymore. And then you've got to get it unstuck in order to be able to keep moving.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I get that. I see a lot of, I know the kind of the buzzwords, triggers, these days. Everyone's got
It was
a trigger.
an easy word to use.
Yes.
I knew everybody would know what I meant, but I'm with you. It's a little
That's
cliche.
Right. The only triggers I like are the ones with my guns. But I get it. I get it because in everyday life, you'll see things. And again, if you're even somewhat self-aware, there's things that set me off. And they're always dumb things. They're things that you would think when you realize, when you come back down of, snapping at someone, like, that was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Like, there's some things that, and it's almost like a PTSD thing too. There's little things that have happened, right? And and you can do them, and from the outside, it's like, what? Like, I have some, I'm going to share what happens, but I'm like, it just freezes you up and you can't do something because there's no ability to retaliate. Okay. And it's something that if you look at the outside, there's something wrong with you, man. But that doesn't bother anybody, but it'll bother you. So I think it's in that sphere, right? That may not be specifically grief. That's a different trauma, right? That you went through that caused that stuff. So it's kind of, and I like this answer because we're unpacking. It's just not grief. We talked about regret. Okay. It's another side thing, right? It's another issue. Now I mentioned, PTSD stuff, getting this kind of trauma, and that's a trauma, right? That happened. And there can, I guess, be grief in that, depending on what happened, right? On that kind of stuff, from a loss or a damage or whatever that might have been. Then there's grief itself, that seems bigger than all of that. Because again, I'm still, and I want to get into this a little bit more on the grief aspect. So from a performance, a day-to-day, what have you seen when people are dealing with this? What are these small, these multiple micro traumas? Okay, those kind of things. A large event. Okay, for people, like we talk, maybe a pet, a grandmother, anybody, a friend, brother, sister, whoever, right? Best friend. Something like that, a big loss on that. What are like some of the indicators? Are there like indicators that you see that are commonalities when people are suffering from those, maybe the larger, either the accumulation of the small or the larger? Is there indicators?
From my experience, what I see is that people feel stuck and they don't know why. They can't seem to move forward. They can't seem to level up. They get to a certain point in their business growth and then they plateau. But I know that there are other clients out there. Why can't we jump to the next, whatever that is, the next circle of influence, and they don't know what it is. And that is when something intangible is in the way, in my opinion. You've got some kind of an emotional blockage that is keeping you from doing that. And I know that can sound really woo-woo at times where, okay, well, so what do you mean? How do you get there? I'll use an example as to what I mean by that. So you're 6 years old and you are riding your bicycle down a hill. And you're so excited because you can feel the wind in your face. You're pedaling as fast as you can. But because you're so in the moment and you're only 6 also, you don't see that there is a stick in your path. And when you hit that, you fly off your bicycle and you get all skinned up. You cry, you get really upset. Your 6-year-old brain takes from that, we cannot go too fast ever again. Okay. So we're going to create a construct in our brains that keep us from doing that. So next time we're going to maybe put the brakes on a couple of times, or we'll be looking down at the road a few more times. We're going to do that a little differently. We're not in the moment as much as we were before, because now we have this other thing that we're concentrated on. We know it exists, but we keep doing that. As we grow older, that construct stays there because we've never challenged it. So now we're 36 and we still have this concept of, but we can't grow too fast in our business, because what if there's a stick? What if we fall? So it's that, it just goes back to me to that point, that self-awareness that you pointed out, that you have to know that you're not 6 years old anymore. That construct does not need to be there. You can rebuild that with a different set of criteria. So now, yes, the stick can still be there, but I now have 30 years of experience to teach me how to work around the stick. And even if we do fall down and we do get skinned up again, it's not going to hurt as badly as it did when we were 6. It's going to be different because we've built different criteria and different standards in place to know that a skint knee is not that big of a deal anymore. It was then, it's not now. So we can teach ourselves to look at the same situation differently. But again, because in our brain, when we told ourselves at 6 years old, no way, man, no more fast. We can't do anything fast. That's still there. It will never go away. That's a core belief that you've had in your body and in your mind and in your heart since you were 6 years old. But then you build tools around it to compensate for it that actually work, that are grown-up sized, not 6-year-old sized. And then we start to be able to work around them in a better way.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think what I've discovered as a business coach, being in business all these years myself, working with so many others, the number one problem in almost every business is the owner. Okay, so we're always in our own way. You know, we don't grow because of us. And right to your point, right? We had this stuff, and it doesn't mean we should always address that kind of stuff, right? We want to try to get better and open it up. But there's also and I'm just going to jump to the business side here. There's also like that delegation part and hire great people and let them do their thing. I mean, they're going to have their issues too, but not like you running a company, right? So it's kind of that while you're working on that thing, you know, you got other people doing things, but it is pretty much, and again, self-awareness is a great trait. And that's why companies can move forward with the right owners, right? We can do things, but we have to be able to understand when we do hit those plateaus, this is one of the things you got to look at. I think it's an important thing from a self-awareness standpoint, and just from a good business leveling up, as we said, like you have to look at you, because there's a great saying I learned, I think it was Jim Rohn who said it. He goes, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. And I always tell myself that, because, and when I do, I look and I go, oh yeah, that's me. Look at the people around you. They're like you. Okay. You're not hanging out with a bunch of oddballs. Well, if you're me, you are, because I'm an oddball, but I got a bunch of oddballs around me. But most people are like, they don't realize, like, you know, and it's always, they say the 5 closest people to you represent you. They same income, same job, all that kind of stuff, right? So we have to understand that, right? So when we want to level up in business, we have to look at these things. And I think it's easy to say, well, I'll get new friends. Oh, I'll get a new network. But this topic on the grief, on micro traumas, on regret, you put that stuff together, that's introspection. That's like, okay, this isn't a matter of who I'm hanging out with. This is an issue that has been in with me since whenever, like you said, 6 or before, or it could be 5 years, could be 6 months, right? And this is affecting you. You have to see that. And then it's the addressing part. Is that something let's see if we can touch on that a little bit on the, how do you fix this?
Is it? I love this question, because I heard a long time ago, and it was between business school and now, but I don't know exactly where. New level, new devil. And to me, this will be recurring. This is not something that you will go through one time as a business owner or even as a high level executive, whatever that looks like for you. And you will reach the point where you figure out this emotional block or something that's in the way, a trauma that's causing problems when you make certain decisions, and you'll go, thank goodness, my hands are clean now. I feel good. Okay, from now on, it's going to be sky is the limit. That's not true. You're going to do this multiple times. Once you tackle one, then you'll climb up the hill some more, and then something else will show up. And you have to have the wherewithal to notice it. Again, self-awareness, to be able to sit down and go, but why are we only halfway up the hill? Why are we only halfway to $1 million? Why are we only halfway to our goal for this year? Why is that happening? And it is about that introspection, because you will hire some good people and some bad people, and you have that balance around you, but you're also still you. The old saying of no matter wherever you go, there you are, that concept will still be there. The only way that you can level up yourself and the business is to tackle that devil, whatever that thing is that's coming up, that's keeping that decision from being made. It's something you have to address and tackle. And it may be your 6-year-old self that created a Lego structure in the way, and now you have to bust that into pieces and make it into something else. Or it may be something that happened to you a year ago, and you have to reconstruct it. It's all about paying attention and being willing. Because honestly, you can have all the self-awareness in the world, but if you aren't willing to do the work and you aren't willing to reconstruct something, you're not going to be able to level up. You're not going to be able to get past it. So to me, it's a twofold process. You reconstruct knowing that you're going to have to do this again. This isn't the only time this is going to happen. Even if you are on an executive career path and you're not an entrepreneur, you're still going to have to do it, because once you get to a certain point, there's going to be something in the way, and it may be invisible or it may be very tangible. You still have to figure out what it is.
Yeah, I think the good news about that, like anything, the more you practice, the better you get. So if you get the first thing and you know it's going to happen again, well, I dealt with that. So you have some principles, you have some techniques, right, that you can apply the next time. And every time you do it, I would imagine the awareness increases.
Great.
Right. So now we're starting to see the pattern. We're going through our reaction, right, to something. And now we can recognize the pattern. Oh, this might be a grief thing or grief thing, whatever. So then you can take time to look at, okay, well, yeah, I guess it is step 3, 4, and 5 now. Right.
Okay.
We did those. Now let's get through it. Okay. We're good. Now I'm good till we get higher on the hill, like you said.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I think that's a good way to look at it, because I do like to learn. I like to correct things, right? I had to do that a lot with myself years ago, just to, be able to get married, have respect for people, stuff like that. There's, right.
Yes. For a lot of people, it's that. I mean, it's having a child. If they had a rough childhood, or even if they had a brilliant childhood, why am I having a hard time committing to having a child? There's something in the way. And my favorite question to ask in all of this is, why can't I make a decision? Why can't I act? That is the core of where we're going here. Why can't I? And it's not, why can't I make $1 million? It's why can't I sell to that client? Why can't I create this presentation? Why can't I write 100 or 1,000 words a day on the book? Whatever that looks like, there's something in there that's keeping you from moving forward. Attack that, and you're going to create an opening that you could get something done.
Yeah, there's something I learned a long time ago. Because you can tie in anxiety here. Okay, people suffer from anxiety, and what you're just saying, I always tell people, I go, well, people take this wrong, but I go, anxiety is usually the result of an inability to make a decision, right? Think about that.
You're stopping yourself for some reason, and and you don't know, you may not know why, you may know why. Either way, attacking it is the best way.
If you can't make that decision, you'll just, I always use the example, my younger brother had a girlfriend way back, and when they drove, he would tell me, as she was driving along and you're coming, you can see a stoplight up, whatever, half mile away, a quarter mile away. She starts panicking. Is it going to turn yellow? Is it going to be red? What should I do? What should I do? It's like, take it easy. Make the decision when it happens. What that whole, you talk about, like, she goes through this panic attack, like every time she approached the stoplight. Like, now after this conversation, I go, oh my gosh, can you imagine how that got there? Right? Like, who knows? But wow, you think about that stuff, and I'm kind of laughing because if I was in the car, I don't know, I'd be making fun of her probably.
We're able to look at other situations like that and be able to make assessments about them. But that gets me so jazzed. Man, I would have loved to have been in the car with her to have that conversation and be like, okay, hold on a second. Why are we caring whether it turns yellow or not? That's such an important thing. It's a great example because it just speaks to what we do to ourselves in those moments, in those protection spheres, in those protection bubbles, whatever you want to call them, that we do to ourselves. And most of the time, we have no idea that we're doing it. We just know, why am I uncomfortable pulling up to a stop sign? Why am I uncomfortable going through a traffic light? And that's where it comes from. There's something in there that is blocking that path.
I just was thinking, man, I hope she got that figured out. It's been like 40 years.
Me too.
Stay off the streets in Phoenix. Yeah.
If not, then I hope she listens to this episode and she gets what she.
We could cure after all this time. It'd be awesome.
All this time.
What a connection. But it's really fascinating to me, and that's why I wanted to really get into this subject when we did our pre-call and stuff, because I'll tell the audience we're talking. I'm like, well, what are you doing on my podcast? Like I was like, well, what agree? And then we kind of hit this. I'm like, wait a minute, this is performance enhancement. This is blockage and all this stuff. So it's so cool. So I'm so glad you're able to come on. But let's go to like the next thing. And I don't even know what the next thing is because you're the expert and I'm the guy hosting a show. And let's do one more thing as we move along here on the grief, all this kind of where we're at. Like, what's the next thing of awareness? Like, is there more? Is there something? Like, where does this all kind of go, in the big scheme of things?
Absolutely. I feel like the best way to move forward in those situations is forgiveness is the best path forward. So we talked about identifying, we dig in, we figure out what it is, we attack it, we deconstruct it, we reconstruct it. But then afterwards, we have to be able to say to ourselves or to the external entity that we have grief around, it's over. Let it go. Be Princess Elsa for the moment and create a new thing. What we tend to do, especially with regret, is we want to say, but I can't ever do that again. I don't ever want to be in that position again. I can't get divorced again. I can't lose somebody I love again. So I don't want to have to put my dog down, so I'm not going to get another dog. I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm eligible for a promotion. So I'm just going to coast so that I don't have to feel that pain. Forgiving what happened and figuring out what you can learn from it, that's the nugget. So we learn from it, we forgive whatever that is that needs to be forgiven, and then we go. We continue. To me, complacency is my biggest fear. To be in a situation where I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I don't have to be better. I don't have to think about anything differently. I can just stay right here and I can just, pull the covers back up and I'm good. That's where I personally I would consider that an emotional death. A lot of other people are comfortable in that position, but there is a place where we have to say, I forgive whatever happened. I've learned from it. I'll do my best and I'm going to move on. And that to me is how we wrap it up. That's how we put a bow on it and say, all right, that can now go on the shelf for a while. If we have to revisit it, we can. I'm not saying it goes away for any length of time. Our life is our life and we have the experiences and the wisdom that comes with all of the experiences. But at least we can say, I don't have to keep activating that. I don't have to keep opening that thing and looking at it and looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. I can let it go.
Yeah, that's great. I think I'm with you on that. I think it's key. You've got to forgive we all make mistakes. We're all imperfect, always going to be, never going to be perfect. So, and same with other people, there's people who may bring grief in your life, right? Intentionally or unintentionally, right? It happens, right? You got to be able to let that go. But, I heard the great thing on forgiveness, not forgiving someone, including yourself, is like drinking poison, hoping it kills the other person, right? So you get that kind of analogy there, and just think like, to be able to wrap it up like that, to be able to understand this, like now you understand what it is, right? We talked about what it is. We're looking at some other comparisons to other things that are tied into it, kind of in the same circle, regret, things like that, anxiety, that kind of stuff. And now take this letting it go, because letting it go is the hard part. Yeah. Because people get comfortable in their grief. It becomes part of their identity.
Correct. That was what I was going to say. Is it they hold on to it because they think if they let go of it, they're forgetting and that they're not going to learn from it. And that's not the case at all. It can be both. You can have the experience, the joy and the sorrow together at the same time. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an important distinction. So so you think about that, that's really great. And it's just, this has been good, Angela, because we've kind of gone through all the steps, so I've really enjoyed it. And again, from the entrepreneurial standpoint and everybody out there, just take this to heart, like give it some thought. They don't have to do anything right now, but like just start, because I always think everything begins with the awareness aspect. If you get that triggered reaction, then you go, well, what was that? It's kind of emotional intelligence and all that kind of stuff too, as part of learning, getting over that stuff. But really start thinking about it, start noticing those things. And that's why I wanted to talk about this, because like the micro traumas, that's a big thing, right? And anything, like I have micro traumas to my head. I have a lot of micro concussions from boxing. I got hit a lot, knocked out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in my head that cause to do things. You don't realize it's like it doesn't take you out. You don't go unconscious, but you get these traumas, right? So it's very similar. These little damages over time accumulate, and they have an effect on the body and the mind. So it's important to understand that. But again, if we can address it and understand it, because it's not a minor physical, but this emotional stuff, if you can overcome that and remove it, okay, it's gone. I mean, it's gone. So like you can operate, you can go to that next level and do that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate you being on, Angela. This has been really enlightening, just to talk about this and get this stuff out there and just take this viewpoint on this and kind of open it up for people. Because full transparency, I'm a tough guy who doesn't like to, get into and talk about it. It's not totally uncomfortable, but I'm like, I mean, you just want to kind of like, you move on, like you're saying, so this is really good. It's very helpful for me as well. And I hope it is for our audience as well who are listening. So let's say they want to get in touch with you, follow you, get a website, anything you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. The website is donethatpodcast.com. On there, you can see all of our episodes that we've published and everything that we've done, any other guest spots that we have. And then as things evolve for me and become more things, everything will be right there on the website. My next
Awesome.
goal is to write a book. That's
All right.
I'm putting it out there.
Get your book
and so
done.
that's where everything will be. You can also email me at dunnatinfo.com at gmail.com. And the Dunn is spelled Dunn. That's my maiden name. So it's a play on our words that we are on that favorite saying, been there, done that. And that is, so it's DUNNTHAT podcast.com.
Awesome. I'll put all that in the show notes so everyone's got it.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for being on today. This has been great discussion. Thank you everyone for listening, and tune in again for the next one. We've always got great guests. Like and subscribe to our podcast here. Just, reviews are great. Write a good review. You love this conversation, so write a great review about it. It's simple, so you don't really have to come up with anything. You've already heard it all. So that'd be awesome. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you on the next Sharpen the Spear podcast. And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.